All right, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Talks. Want to welcome everyone that is joining here for the very first time. I hope that everybody had a wonderful, wonderful 4th of July. Just wanted to just say hello to everyone. It's a new week. I can't believe we're starting off a new month. It felt like COVID-19 was just introduced like a few days ago, right? I mean, at least for me, I have no idea where you guys are at. But time seems to be flying right now, and a lot of great things are happening for us, and wanted to welcome you and have you guys hear a little bit about our story. And then we've got a very special guest speaker here tonight who's going to be dialing in here in just a moment. So without any further ado, for those of you that are joining us for the very first time, just so you guys know, we've been doing what we do for the last 27 years. I mean, it's unbelievable how time has been flying. And so for 27 years, we have been entrepreneurs. When I say we, my wife and I started a company in the she started the company in the early 90s. And then we started working together in the mid 90s. And then we eventually got married, and here we are, you know. And so we've been training, we've been building our businesses, and it's crazy all of a sudden, you know, a very scary virus, you know, that we were at war with, you know, could have crippled us, but we didn't. In fact, in the last 4 months that we've been, you know, quarantined at home, doing our own thing, we have had remarkable growth. I mean, unprecedented growth. In fact, I think we were probably, like many others, who were wondering, oh my God, what do we do? How do we do business? You know, how is this going to work? Because normally we did our training inside our offices, and we've got a few hundred of them around the country. And so it's pretty crazy that all of a sudden COVID takes place, and this awesome thing called Zoom, which is what we're using right now, we were able to improvise, adapt to our changes, and wow. Who would have thought that we would be able to grow at the rate we're growing? And I'll tell you what, I don't remember the last time I worked this hard. The last time I think I worked this hard was probably in the first 5 years of our business in the early 90s, in the mid 90s. And then I don't remember working this hard. So, but we have been working very diligently and just helping so many people. And for those of you that are joining us, hopefully we're going to provide you some content here tonight, okay? So now let's go ahead and get started. Got a couple announcements to make here real fast, and then we'll get right into it. So first of all, we do product trainings every Thursday. So when I say product training, what does that mean? So basically what I want to do is talk to you about how to increase your cash flow, manage your debt, create an emergency fund, or where can you create an emergency fund, how to protect yourself in terms of, you know, whether it's life insurance or health insurance, but even from litigation. And so when I mean protecting yourself, we're talking about asset protection. How do you make sure, should you start an LLC? Should you start a corporation? All that kind of stuff. Anything that has to do with business and all the different products and services that are out there, we do the training for you Thursdays at 2:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, again, down below, you'll see this little link right here. It's our bit.ly link. It is case sensitive, so a lot of people haven't been using the uppercase letters or the lowercase. It is very case sensitive. So you do have to register, and then you'll get a link and you'll be able to join in and learn a lot of stuff. And I'll tell you what, we started this 4 months ago with about 50 people, and then we've been growing and growing and growing and growing, and now we're up to 1,000. And then we started to carry over onto a live YouTube feed. And so we just love the Zoom platform, and I'm just grateful. In fact, if you look at Zoom stocks, I mean, it's skyrocketing. It's unbelievable. Year to date is up over 280%, just to kind of give you an idea how everyone is embracing Zoom. And I think we found a new norm in our industry. I can tell you about other industries as well, but I don't know about other industries what I want to say, but I know for sure in our industry, definitely there might be a new norm here. And then, of course, on Saturdays, I call it Shin-tastic Saturday. I bring special guest speakers. We go for about an hour and 15 minutes. We do some Q&A. And I've had a lot of people email me. I get text messages, emails, Instagram messages, Facebook messages, asking us to to provide this kind of content or whatever it is. And we're broadcasting now all over the United States. In fact, all over North America. I was recently told that we're now being seen in the Philippines. We have people in the Philippines watching. We have people in Korea watching, believe it or not, people in Puerto Rico. We have people in New Zealand, Australia, even out there in the islands of Hawaii. So those of you that are listening in, welcome to our incredible show. So that's on Saturday. We have Shintastic Saturday. Now, next Tuesday, we have this amazing guy named John Pham, good friend of mine. I've known him for pretty much my entire business career. Will also be joining us at 6:30. You don't want to miss this. This guy has built an extraordinary business. And in the business, the whole idea of entrepreneurship has really just really embraced their whole family. Their whole family are entrepreneurs. All his brothers, his parents, everyone. And in fact, their family, their extended family, their cousins, their relatives, they're all business owners, from owning fishing type operations and going out there and getting shrimp to creating websites and doing credit card stuff. I mean, pretty remarkable what kind of an entrepreneurial family this is. But John Pham will be with us next week on Tuesday. Make sure that you listen in. Now, for those of you that don't know about this book, I want to encourage you guys to get it, read it, watch it, whatever you got to do. Is a book called Think and Grow Rich. So when I started my entrepreneurial journey, it was in the early 1990s. My wife and I, when I say we, both Arlene and I, we did not have the luxury that you guys all have today, where you've got podcasts, YouTube, there's books, there's events, there's virtual events and summits, there's mentors and coaches. There's just a plethora of information of people that you can go to get content. We didn't have that. And so, so basically, we read a book called Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill, which is an absolute timeless classic. I want to highly recommend it to anybody who has not read it. And Napoleon Hill was only 25 years of age when he went to go interview. He was actually a reporter. He went to go interview a man named Andrew Carnegie. And he interviewed this man named Andrew Carnegie. And if you don't know who he is, I mean, you should find out who Andrew Carnegie is all about. But he asked Mr. Carnegie, he said, Mr. Carnegie, what is the secret to becoming successful? And he thought it was a great question. He said, well, listen, I would love to commission you and go and interview other people. So he went off and he interviewed Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Theodore Roosevelt, the Wright brothers, not the group from the 60s, right, or the 50s. These are the guys who invented the plane, okay? John D. Rockefeller and so many others. I mean, the list goes on. Over 500 people were interviewed, and they were now in this book. And what Napoleon Hill did is he discovered the 13 common denominators of all these entrepreneurs and put it into this book. Now, so those 13 principles, I can tell you that Arlene and I have embraced it. We've applied it. And we loved it so much that we felt like this newer, younger generation today, they may not like to read books. And so what we actually did is we made a movie out of it. And so a guy named Scott Servine, who's one of the producers and directors, a guy named Andrew Graham, myself, we went and got the rights from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. We made this movie called Think and Grow Rich, The Legacy. And what a joy it was to make this movie. I mean, I learned so much from this, the production of this movie, the people that are in this movie, and we started to show this. We had a limited theatrical release initially when it came out. We were at AMC theaters, and then from AMC theaters, we went to the digital platform, and then on the digital platform, we started growing. Then next thing you know, we decided to go to DVD sales, and that's exactly what we did. If you want to get a copy of this, please do so at johnshin.com. It's $25. Most of that money goes to the Napoleon Hill Foundation, just so you guys know. It's not like another way for me to make money. We do ship to Canada. There's a slight little extra cost just because of COVID-19 to ship to Canada. But what a great book. And then what we've been doing is we've been showing this. We've been doing some special screenings for this movie on Friday nights, and we'll be making some announcements, putting it out on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and letting people know about this. But what happened was you got this book that was written, and this is now the new version of it on Amazon. It is the unedited version, and then from there, a version called Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice came out. Now, you don't have to be Black to read this book. I think that Dr. Dennis Kimbrough actually did a phenomenal job putting this book. It is a #1 bestseller. And then the Latinos responded, and they wrote their version called Think and Grow Rich, a Latino version. And then Sharon Lechter, who is the former CEO of Rich Dad Poor Dad, and actually was the co-author of the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. She wrote Think and Grow Rich for women. Now, again, you don't have to be a woman, you don't have to be a Latino or Black or white. And now I actually got the rights, and now I am a part of the faculty of these amazing authors and coaches and mentors and thought leaders, where we wrote a book called How Rich Asians Think and Grow Rich. So this is now available, just so you all know. This book just came out. I've got some amazing people in here, people like Elon Musk, Dwayne Johnson, Vera Wang, Steve Aoki, Jack Ma, Kevin Harrington, Jamie Villalobos, Raja Dhaliwal, Penny Oyd, amazing people. And again, I want you to read this. And I didn't have just Asians in my book. I actually have people from all different walks of life, all different ethnicities, different religions, different everything. And the reason is because I believe that success does not discriminate, and success goes to anybody who embraces the 13 principles written in this book called How Rich Asians Think. Now, in this book, I also take you step by step on how to make a certain decision, if you would, right? Or maybe you're a procrastinator. What do you got to do to stop procrastinating, okay? Or, one of the first things in the book talks about having a burning desire. And some people just aren't as motivated, right? Their dreams have been shattered. And so how do you get that dream machine? How do you get that desire, that burning desire, the candle light, relit? So a lot of action steps in this book, and I really, really want to encourage you to get it. It is available now on ebook. If you want to get it on Amazon, please do. We have the ebook. If you read it, I really need your help for you to go in here and post a review. So we do have audio of this now. We have obviously the book itself in a hardcover. We have the ebook version, the Kindle version. It's all available now online. So then the book did so well, the movie did so great, that we actually went on a tour. And we call this the Think and Grow Rich Legacy World Tour. We've gone to 12 countries. We're going to 34 different states. And then, of course, last year is when we started this entire tour, and then it came to a screeching halt. But I'll tell you what, in just the 1 year and 2 months that we were on our tour, I'll tell you, I grew so much. I really did. One of my mentors once said to me, he says, John, he said, what you learn after you think you know it all makes all the difference. And I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful. And it didn't make sense at the time, but I thought it was very powerful, very profound. And again, here I am now, still learning. Just when I thought I knew it all, still learning, still growing. So I'm certainly not going to be on this podcast or this webinar with you guys acting as if I got the answers to everything, because I don't. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. Though I might be a little better off financially than most people, I might have a different lifestyle today than many, but I'm still growing, right? I'm definitely not where I want to be. But I'll tell you, meeting people like Condoleezza Rice, who I've shared the stage with, what an amazing lady. Barbara Corcoran, who's also in our movie Think and Grow Rich. We've got Martin Sheen. Both he and I served as officers of the Manny Pacquiao Foundation. This is Rob Dyrdek, who's also in my movie. And then, of course, this man here, Stedman Graham. I don't know if you guys all know who Stedman is, but Stedman is Oprah Winfrey's other half, whether you could say that they're married, spiritual partners, business partners. Stedman is an amazing guy. And, of course, that's me and him. The guy's tall, man. This guy's like 6'8". And I'm like 5'8". So the only way I was actually to be taller than him in this picture was to actually go and get a folding chair. So you can only imagine how tall he really is. But great guy, great sense of humor. And as I said, I got Steve Aoki. These are a couple friends, Ralph and Adriana, who got me connected with Steve Aoki. And everything is all about, who you know. And it's no longer the 6 degrees of separation. It's all about, you're almost like 1 degree with Facebook and Instagram. It's like 1 degree of separation. And then, of course, them introducing me to Steve, other amazing things have happened. And then, of course, I got an opportunity to meet Mario. Mario Lopez has a podcast show, and he wanted me on his show. I've been on there a couple times. And now Mario and I are in the process of writing a book together. We're doing a joint book. And then we started hosting events together. And then last year, one of the greatest honors, my wife and I both got knighted by the Royal Order of Constantine the Great and St. Helen. And the responsibility, it's not just the title. With title also goes with big responsibilities that we were prepared to undertake and to get into that servant leadership role. And here's a picture of my wife. You've never met her. And I hope that you do. I really do. I hope that sooner than later this thing ends, that we all have a chance to meet face to face at one of our live events. Now, one of the questions I get pretty frequently is, how did it happen to you, right? When did it all happen? When was the turning point? I mean, I get these kinds of questions all the time, emails, text messages. I wish I could respond to all of them, but I try to do my best. I mean, during a little bit of my downtime, I'll try to respond back to each one of those things. But I just can't tell you how much we love being entrepreneurs and helping others becoming successful. So one thing that we did is we certainly prayed. And, it's interesting that when you pray and you ask for things, you ever wonder that maybe God may be sending you something that you're asking for in a different package, right? I mean, does that ever dawn on you that maybe if you're praying for money, that he may not send you a briefcase full of Ben Franklin's, right? That maybe you want a different kind of marriage, or you're not married and you're trying to find that true love. Maybe it's about your health. Maybe it's about, trying to work on your spirituality. Maybe it's learning how to grow your faith. I don't know whatever it is that you're looking for. The answers are there, and we want to help you find those answers. But I believe that God sends you what you're asking for in a different package. And I also believe that timing has a lot to do with it. So right now, just so you all know, there is a group of people called the baby boomers. Now, there's roughly about 76 million baby boomers, 77 million, not quite sure, the exact number, but somewhere in between there, after World War II was over in 1945, we had a surge in babies. And so people say, well, why were so many babies born after 1945? Well, World War II was over, I believe, in August of 1945. And after World War II, all of a sudden, these soldiers had not seen a woman in a long time. And boom, babies were born. And we might be chuckling at that. You're like, yeah, that's pretty funny. But that is serious. I mean, that's exactly what happened. And so now these baby boomers, the industry, you'll see this trend in what industries started doing well. This is what I mean by timing. When all of a sudden 80 million babies were born in the 1940s, and this is something that my wife did, she went in there and started to analyze and examine all the companies that were doing well in the 1940s. Do you think it was coincidence that suddenly Gerber Food and Johnson & Johnson were doing well financially, right, their industry, the baby industry, because 80 million babies were born? Then the next industry came, right? And do you think it was coincidence that it was the toy industry, Mattel and Hasbro? Then the next industry that came along was fast food. And then after that, the babies got a little bit older. They graduated from college. And what's the first thing that most people buy right out of college? I have no idea what all that beeping sound is in the background. But the car industry came along. And then after that, the technology came along. And then after that, it was real estate. And then after that, it was, here we are. We're now here in the retirement segment of this timeline. And so if you're sitting there thinking, God, what business should I get into? Now, you may have never thought about going into the financial service industry, but I'll tell you what, I didn't either. But I'm going to tell you that the financial service industry may not be your dream, but it's the means, it's the vehicle to help you get to your dreams, right? Because there's a lot of money that you guys can make in the financial industry, okay? So one of the reasons, other than making money and being at the right place at the right time, was the fact that we believe that many people were financially illiterate, right? Illiterate. And that's why financial literacy is such an important part of both my wife and I's lives, and trying to teach people how money works. You know, when you look at a celebrity or a sports athlete or some, you know, I don't know, someone who's very successful, doctors, they really don't understand how money works. You know, it's interesting how many of these people make millions of dollars. They make a lot of money, but then they go bankrupt a few years later. And you just kind of go, how do you blow $200, $300, $400, $500 million, right? And so when you look at somebody like Will Smith, or you look at somebody like Mark Wahlberg, or even Steve Aoki, or how about Jennifer Lopez? Most people would look at Jennifer Lopez and say, oh, J-Lo, she's just a dancer. She's a singer. I would disagree with you. In fact, Jennifer Lopez is an entrepreneur. This lady is business savvy, right? Will Smith is business savvy. Steve Aoki, business savvy. And so when I look at certain doctors that make $400,000, $500,000, $1 million a year, but they got nothing to show for it, you ask yourself, where did all that money go? Some of you who have made a pretty good living over the last, whatever, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you know, you kind of sit there and go, where did all my money go? And so this is financial illiteracy. In fact, in 2012, we did a study and did some research and discovered that 37 states require sex education. Sex education. Now, I'm not anti-sex education, okay? I think it's very important for us to educate our children about money. But only 4 states require financial literacy. So here's the thing. If our children are old enough to know about sex and get educated about sex, and they're mature enough to know that, then I believe that they're mature enough to understand how money works. And now this is in 2012, only 4 states. Let me show you the progress. In 2015, it was 1 state. We added Alabama, okay? So you can see the very slow progress. For some reason, our politicians can't figure out that we need to educate people about money. Okay, now here we are. Let's fast forward to 2020, okay? I just did a commercial for Dasani. Wonderful. All right, here we go. Dasani. Some of you guys, yeah, I just said Dasani, and I'm sure some people that are listening right now is like, John, don't be drinking that water. That's not good water. Man, it was on my counter. Something's in my throat, and so I just drank it. I don't even know who it belonged to. Hopefully it was my wife's. I don't know. What do you think, Anna? Was it mine? It was probably mine. All right. COVID-19. Anyway, here we are, 2020. We added 2 states, Iowa and North Carolina. Okay, so you can see how slow this is. And so, look, we are huge advocates about teaching our children about money, teaching adults about money. Do you understand that most people do not know the difference between whole life and universal life? They don't know the difference between a mutual fund and a stock, or the difference between an ETF and a UIT. Now, some of you guys are going, is he making that up? I've never heard of a UIT, right? You don't know the difference between passive and active management, or you don't know the difference of should I buy a car or should I lease a car, or what is the difference between a CD and a CD, right? And so, you know, most people are financially ignorant. Okay, they're not dumb, right? They're just, I mean, well, gosh, should I even say that? Some of you guys might just disagree, but there are some dumb people, okay? There are some stupid people, but there's more ignorant people, and I want to help the ignorant ones, right? Because the dumb ones, the stupid people, no matter what you do, they have the I know syndrome. Like, oh, I already know everything. Don't try. I don't need your help. And they don't ask for help. They don't want any help, but they're broke. They're struggling, and they feel like they know it all, right? And so one of the things I want to do is teach people, the ones that want to know, people like you who tuned in tonight from all over the world and saying, okay, I got to listen to what this guy has to say. And so here you are. And I just want you guys to know that I want to share with you the 6 principles of financial literacy, okay? To become financially free, these are the 6 steps to financial security. Number 1 is this. I want to show you how to increase cash flow. right? More now than ever, you should probably learn how to make more money. Okay, and so increasing your cash flow is important. A couple weeks ago, I was talking how many people today are looking for ways to, they spend 90% of their time, their energy, trying to reduce their expenses, right? They're clipping coupons, double coupons, right? They're looking for deals. They're going to, I think it's called Groupons, right? Is that what it is? Where you find like deals, right? Or whatever, what is it? Yeah, rebates, whatever. God, what else is there? You're trying to get an electric car, right? Because you get an electric car, you can save money on gas. You're trying to find roommates to come and occupy space just to reduce expenses, right? You're doing everything. You're packing your lunch. You're doing. But listen, at the end of the day, you can only condense that fixed expense down to so much. Right? And that's it. You can't go any lower than like whatever your minimum is, okay? But they spend 90% of their energy doing this. What I want you to do is spend 90% of your energy not focusing on your expenses, but focusing on increasing your cash flow. Because increasing your cash flow is infinite. You can make as much money as you want. The sky's the limit. Listen, God, how do I say this without a whole bunch of you texting me after and say, John, I loved your show. I loved everything you said until you just said that. But look, I think, in my opinion, right, is it okay? Can I share with you guys my opinion without people getting all pissed off and bent out of shape? And then you're going to, get angry with me. But here's my opinion. My opinion is that most people, I forgot how I was going to say, I lost my train of thought, right? No matter how bad the United States is, okay, right now, you might think, oh my God, the left this, the right that, these politicians this, all these protesters and right. Look, at the end of the day, no matter how bad it is right now in the United States, it's better than probably anywhere else in the face of this planet. Okay, I mean that. I mean, you might think it's bad, but it's still better than anywhere else in the world. Okay, I mean that's just my opinion. And if you disagree, then what are you doing here in the United States? You might as well go live in those other countries, right? Because I believe that most of us who came to this country, your ancestors, your parents, or whoever, left their country to come to the United States because this is the land of the free, right? I mean, freedom, freedom, freedom. I mean, gosh, what other country could you go and say the things that we want to say about your president, right? And still be standing and not be imprisoned, right? I mean, come on, that's freedom. You have the freedom of speech, okay? What other countries can you go and you can start a business? Pretty much just about anything you want these days. You can start a business as long as it's like, ethical and moral. But folks, you need to embrace that. You live in the greatest country, the land of the opportunity. And right now there's tremendous opportunities. Even with COVID-19, there are opportunities. So you got to learn how to increase your cash flow. Number two is we got to learn how to manage your debt. I get a lot of people call me and say, well, John, I'm thinking about buying a piece of property right now. And I'm like, piece of property? I'm like, you got debt. You've got all this credit card debt. Now you're telling me, they came to me. How do I know it? Because they came to me, right? And they're like, John, I've got 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, 80,000. I mean, I just met somebody who's got $500,000 of credit card debt. And these are people who have debt. And then they go, I want to go buy a house, right? Someone just told me that they got some money from the SBA. And instead of taking that money and paying off all their debt and their expenses to run their business, they want to go buy a piece of property because they went to some virtual summit, online, and they listened to some people talk about owning a house during a time of crisis. This is the best time to buy houses because you'll get the best deals. Well, when people say like they made money on their one house, oh, I just bought a house and sold it for this, I made all this money. Yeah, they don't tell you about the other 50 deals that they didn't make money, right? Oh, I bought this house, I flipped it, and I made 30 grand. Yeah, what about the other 5 or 10 or 15 that you lost money on, right? So you only hear the good things. You never hear the bad things where people struggle. But before you guys decide that you want to go buy a piece of real estate, okay? Number one, make sure that you're debt-free. Make sure you don't have any credit card debt. especially the ones that are the 20% interest rates and higher, okay? Number two, make sure that you've got an emergency fund, okay? An emergency fund. So until you have those things established, I would not recommend that you go buy a house, okay? Now, and you know what, and I could do another session on a Thursday where we have more time, and I can debate with you all day long, right? The 16 reasons why I would not buy a house, okay? But again, you've been programmed a certain way, right? You've been programmed where mom and dad, grandparents, somebody said, when you buy a house, get a 30-year loan and pay it off as fast as possible. In fact, maybe next week, or no, actually, this coming tomorrow, right? No, what day is today? Today's Tuesday. Huh, I'm totally lost in my schedule. Day after tomorrow, I'm going to show you guys a link again. I'm going to be very specific about real estate. I'm going to go into real estate, and I'm going to do some mortgage training and some real estate training, and I'm going to give you some examples of why I don't believe that owning a house is the better way to go. So you can tune in for that, and why I think maybe putting money in mutual funds might be better off, okay? I'm going to give you my opinion on it, and then we'll just do some Q&A, right? In fact, if you disagree, then join me, and let's talk about that, right? Because, maybe you can convince me otherwise. But folks, let me just tell you something. I've owned a lot of real estate, and I mean a lot of real estate. I mean millions and millions and millions of dollars of real estate. And let me just tell you, when it's all said and done, I can tell you that my investments have outperformed my real estate. Okay. Now, you might say, well, man, John, maybe you just picked crappy real estate. You guys, I don't just pick real estate by myself. I mean, I've gone into like syndications where we buy high-rise buildings, shopping centers, right? I mean, we've bought multi-unit apartment buildings and all that. Folks, let me just tell you something. No one can ever have this far convinced me that buying real estate is the better way to go. Okay. Now, again, we'll debate that on Thursday. Join us on 2 o'clock. Now, number 4 is this. I want to make sure that you're properly protected, that you're protected from a disability, an illness, a sickness, a death, your family. What would you do? What would your family do, God forbid, if something happened to you and you died, right? What would you do if you became disabled and you couldn't work, right? Everybody always feels like, oh, well, the government will take care of me. Yeah, little do you know, the government's only going to take care of you temporarily. And then afterwards, they tell you to pick up your bags and head home, right? I mean, I just want you to realize the reality. You can't be dependent on the government, all right? What are you going to do with your health insurance if you don't have the right health insurance, right? Do you know that how many people file bankruptcy because they didn't have health insurance or the wrong kinds of insurance? Okay. Number 5 is to make sure that you're saving for the long term. People say to me, why would I want to do that when I'm going to die in the next 10 years or less? Then I say, you know what? You're absolutely right. You don't have to prepare because you're going to be dead in the next 10 years. How do I know that? Because some people will call it a self-fulfilling prophecy or whatever it is. But I really believe that the more you say something, right, that what you say, remember when we were kids and they say sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me? That is one of the most bogus statement that anybody can ever say. Because let me just tell you something, words are very powerful. You tell someone that they're ugly and they're stupid their whole life, day after day, guess what? The most beautiful person will really believe that they're ugly, right? You can take somebody with the highest IQ and tell them that you're dumb, you're so stupid, oh my God, you're like the biggest dumb, I was going to say something, a dumb individual. And guess what? You're going to believe you're dumb. But the more you say, I'm not going to live, I've only got 5 years before I die, I'm going to get some disease or illness, I'm going to get COVID-19. You know what? You keep on saying things like that, you attract that stuff into your life, right? So be careful what you say, because what you say will become your realities, okay? But I believe that you got to start preparing for the future. I believe I'm going to live over 100 years of age, and I say that every day. Man, I feel like I still look like I'm in my 30s, right? And so my early 30s, excuse me, right? And number 6, guys, is to preserve your assets, right? Protect yourself from all these frivolous lawsuits, all these litigious people who just want a free ride, the easy way out. And so I want to show you how to protect yourself, right? Where can you invest your money and not have to pay capital gains taxes? Can you do that legally? Absolutely, right? I want to go into something called Dynasty Trust, right? And we're going to go into some of that kind of stuff because let me just tell you, there's a reason why the Rockefellers are where they are at, right? And then you want to be able to pass on generation after generation. So at the end of the day, let me just tell you, when you're sick, you go to a hospital, right? Well, guess what? And then you see a primary care physician. The primary care physician exposes you to all these different types of specialists. And so when I looked at this, that's exactly what I wanted to create, a business, a financial company where we can be just like a hospital. See, I think that most people, like, if you're in debt, I kind of consider that like financial cancer, not like the cancer, take your life, but financial cancer. And let me just tell you something. Some people do take their life when they have too much debt and feel like, they do things that are so drastic because they feel like there's no hope, like they'll never get out of debt. And so we created a company that does all these different things right here, right? From loans to merchant processing to property and casualty insurance and insurance, annuities, college planning, retirement, investment advisory services, 401k plans, estate planning, tax planning, business planning. We created the one-stop shop. And while everyone said that this was not going to work, this business will fail, John, you're like the jack of all trades. And they told my wife and I that this wouldn't work. Well, who's got the last laugh? Because now we operate in all 50 states, and we have over 210 locations now set up around the United States, and we have a couple offices up in Canada, okay? Now, having said all that, you guys, this is not the only business I've invested into. I pretty much invested into a lot of different businesses, from financial services to all these different other industries, whether it's e-commerce, solar panels, bath bombs, authoring, movies, you name it, farms, merchant. I've invested in so many different things. And at the end of the day, let me just tell you, which has paid off the most amount of money in passive and residual income is in the financial service industry. And this is why, because Arlene and I have had this amazing life, because of the money and the people we're able to help in the financial field, this is why I'm so passionate about this industry, and why, I think if you're here today, there's a reason for it. I would tell you that you should probably get with somebody that invited you here today to learn more about the financial service industry, because there's a huge need for it. Okay, there is a need more now than ever. It's not a luxury to sit down with a financial expert. It's a necessity today. And I want you to know that if you don't come out of this quarantine after 4 months, going on 5 months, if you didn't come out of this quarantine without a new skill and some new knowledge, maybe a new side hustle or a serious business that will provide you residual and passive income, then folks, let me just tell you something. It wasn't that you lacked time, but you lacked discipline, okay? You lacked discipline. If you go to my YouTube channel, a couple of months ago, I did an episode on how to get more discipline. I think many of you guys right now need more discipline. We're so sensitive, that people are afraid to discipline people now, right? They're afraid, like, if you discipline your child, you might end up going to jail, right? Schools, teachers, man, I remember when I was in elementary school, if you did something bad, you got sent to the principal's office, and he had a paddle, like a ping pong table paddle, right? And he would take that paddle and he'd give you a nice little swatting on your rear end. And those were the days. And man, we learned, oh man, you better not go to the principal's office. And then from that was like too drastic. And then we started giving detention, right? And then we go and sit in this room and waste our time thinking about what kind of a mistake we made, right? Where did we screw up? And now it's no longer detention. Now it's like you get a timeout, right? It's pretty amazing, that we don't know how to discipline our children. We don't know how to discipline people. People are so sensitive today. But at the end of the day, let me just tell you something. Most of you need more income, whether it's passive or residual. I would tell you that's the way you want to go. Don't go into something where it's more active, where you got to work and you got to exchange time for money. That's not the way to go, okay? And so I can spend all day and talk about passive income here, or I can also talk to you about residual income. But I can tell you this right now, that most of you just don't have enough passive income and you don't have enough residual income. And that's because you don't have systems in place. Once you have a system, those systems will help you and enable you to get more income, more passive and residual income, right? And if you look at the word system, it's an acronym that stands for save yourself some time, energy, and money. Save yourself some time, energy, and money. And once you've learned all these things, then you can go off and start building a real solid business. But we have built a business where we've got the financial systems down, the business format systems down, licensing format system, personal development system, leadership format system. We got it all down to a science now, okay, to a science. So what I want you to do is this: get with the person who invited you and say, hey, I want to get more details on how to make more money. Okay, look, what do you got to lose? You got nothing to lose, man. It's like you've been doing the same old stuff that you've been doing, and how's it worked out for you? I mean, I say that respectfully, everyone, but part of my frustration is meeting people and they're always complaining about their circumstances, and then when someone comes along that you've been praying for, remember that earlier slide? I said when you pray for something and then it comes in a different package. What if this call right now, this webinar, this podcast right now is that calling, right? For you to step out of your comfort zone, right? Let us help you. And again, there's nothing wrong to ask for help. You guys, sometimes people are so independent that they're afraid to ask for help because if you ask for help, there must be something wrong with you, right? I mean, you must be incompetent, okay? I 100% disagree with that. In fact, I am one who loves to ask for help. I ask people all the time, could you help me out? Please, I need you to help me out. So I want you to make more money. And number two, learn how money works. And then I want you to talk to me directly. Okay. And so I've got this person that I want to bring on right now. And boy, what can I say about this person? I mean, he is a leadership developer, right? They say that, if you build leaders, they say that teams will come. And he has built over 60 different, what we call leaders, okay, like leaders. So it's one thing to become a leader, but it's another thing to teach other people and duplicate yourself. And he has done that. He has now built an office, not in just 1 or 5 or 10, but over 30 offices, like 34, 35 offices around the United States. This guy, I almost want to say I want to say he's an expert of human nature. Okay, and he's got a lot of training and understanding human nature and psychology, right? And so what I love about this man is just his tenacity, right? When you hang out with him, you'll know what I mean. I hope you guys someday get a chance to meet him, face to face, because he built an awesome organization in California. And most people, once they build something, they don't want to move. They hunker down, stay right where they're at. They don't want change, right? Why would I want to change anything, right? Change isn't good. I don't want to change it. I don't want to fix anything that's not broken. Well, guess what? He and his wife, they just packed everything up and said, we're going to move. And they moved out of California officially, and they moved to Florida, right? And now they go out to Florida, and now they're starting all over, right, from scratch, because his base team and his office and everything here was established. But most people could stay there and say, I'm comfortable, but he wants to be uncomfortable when he's comfortable, right? And so he packed up, relocated to Clearwater, Florida, building it up again. He's got his team up there. He's exploding. And folks, let me just tell you, you're going, well, does he make any money? Yeah, he's making multiple in his career, made multiple 7 figures, okay? So I'm very, very excited to welcome to our webinar and our podcast here today, Mr. Michael Coleman. So, Michael, what's up?
Hey, John, how are you?
We're doing amazing. I don't want to say that too loud to all my jealous colleagues out there, and they're suffering and they don't want to know that. They want me to, it's like the crab effect, right? When you say you're doing great, They're not happy for you. They want you to be suffering like everybody else. So, but I know you're doing great, and I know that most people on this webinar right now are doing great. So, welcome to the call, man.
Hey, man. Well, first of all, I really appreciate you, inviting me to be on the call. And, it's a real honor. And just thinking back to the fact that you were one of the people that early on in my career really believed in me. You've been a tremendous mentor to Heather and myself for almost 20 years. And I remember the first time, and I got to urge every single person that's on this call, if you get a chance to even be in John and Arlene's orbit, just being able to be around them and be exposed to, the Think and Grow Rich work that he's doing, and, Oxianta Financial Partners and the training that he's going to be doing on Thursday. It has literally changed my life. I was just reflecting about the class that you taught, the Elite Circle class, like 20 years ago. And, and I sat there and I remember that I had no background. I didn't know anything about business. I had no sales experience. I didn't come from, the financial industry. I didn't even know what a mortgage is. I'd never heard of life insurance. I was 29 years old. I had 10 grand in a savings account, making 4% back in the day when you had those orange savings accounts, and then from that point forward, I remember, breaking bread with you at Denny's, and you gave me some concepts about, investing, and some of those, I apply those every day to my life. And we've managed to, build a tremendous amount of wealth, and I heard you talking about, this is going to be a great debate on real estate versus, investments, because I've done the numbers and you're correct. And it's very, if you really understand, and understand things like costs and profits and margins and things like that, you look back at the bottom line, it's like, man, John, really, your stuff, and I appreciate you so much. So thanks for having me on here. So.
Right on. Well, thank you, man. So Mike, we've got all these young entrepreneurs, and, some are doing well, some are on the, on the fence, maybe whether they want to go move forward and take a leap of faith into the entrepreneurial or soloprenarial space, or they're like right at that cusp where they might be making $250,000 and they want to get to the $500,000, or they're at the 100,000 but they want to get the $250,000. So I know you probably got a short presentation you want to share, right? So
yeah.
Let me go ahead and make sure that you can do it. Can you do it already? Yeah, you should be able to just go ahead and share whatever PowerPoint you've got, and we're all going to take some great notes and become a great student here for the next 35 minutes.
Perfect. Well, I feel like, I will definitely go through this. Before I do this, I'll just take 2 minutes to kind of to give you my background, so that way the audience can have a chance to be able to know a little bit about me. Is that my background is I was born on a little island called Guam, and so if you don't know where Guam is, it's literally in the middle of the ocean. If you draw a line in the Pacific Ocean from Australia to Japan, right, and from the Philippines to Hawaii, right where those lines cross, right in the middle, that's where Guam is. And Guam doesn't have a whole lot of stuff going on there, let me tell you what. And so in the 70s, my mom and dad said, hey, we gotta figure out, going someplace else that's going to be a little bit better. And so they said, let's relocate to Seattle, Washington. So I was 3 years old and we moved up to Seattle. And, I'll just ask you rhetorically, it's like, have we ever wished that we could be at the right place at the right time? I think everybody does. But the problem is that many times you can be at the right place at the right time. And if you don't know it, you can't see the forest for the trees, then you can be at the right moment and then it could pass you by just like that. And so if you guys think about the great businesses that have been up and started up in the Pacific Northwest, you have companies like Boeing, you've got Amazon, you got Microsoft. One of the ones that we always talk about and you taught me about when I was young in my career was Starbucks, And so my mom in the 70s and early 80s, when she was a college student at University of Washington, she would take me and my sister to hang out with her friends at the original Starbucks in Pike Place Market. And
Wow.
so, I always teased her. I said, Mom, you were at the right place. I said, if you could have just invested in Starbucks stock instead of Starbucks coffee, you'd be a multi-gazillionaire, right? And so she was at the right place at the right time, but she didn't know. She thought she was just at a random coffee shop in downtown Seattle, So anyways, it's, I really cherish the fact that we are at the right place at the right time. But, it was, they were canvassing for jobs in Seattle, and they drove right by this big building, and they looked at each other, should we stop and drop off our resumes? And this was in 1983. And they said, no, let's just keep driving. We don't even know what they do at Microsoft, right? And so my mom and dad were thinking about going to just drop off their resumes. And can you imagine if they went to go work at Microsoft in 1983? They'd be worth hundreds of millions of dollars if they had gone to work at Microsoft,
Yeah.
and it's crazy that you could be right there at that particular moment. So, yeah.
Great story. Great story.
Totally. So it was, so anyway, so we wound up, relocating from there, went down to Los Angeles, graduated from high school locally. Then I went to college in Boston and studied jazz guitar and music production. And then I came back to Los Angeles and had talking about Think and Grow Rich, I had a very simple business plan that me and my best friend put together. And it was 3 steps. It was move to LA was number 1. Number 2 was be famous. And number 3 was be millionaires. I didn't really understand the whole concept of, of setting goals or any of that. I was just like, yeah, we're just going to do it, right? But I was 20-nothing years old. And then we came back and we got beat up from the feet up. I started working at a software company. I got into, internet website design in the mid-90s. I'm actually one of the original customers of Amazon. It says, thank you, Michael Coleman, for being a customer of Amazon since 1997. So I was researching Amazon. I wish someone had told me to buy Amazon stock back then. You know how much it was? It was under $1. And you know how much, if I had just saved my first year's income, it was about 50 grand at that software company. It would be worth, we did the calculations, it would be worth $6.5 billion if I had saved my first year's income in Amazon stock right there, right? So wow. It was, crazy. So then we wound up going to, I retired briefly, moved to New Hampshire, and then I got recruited by a technology company in Tampa, Florida. And then that company went out of business in the technology bubble bursting. And so, one of the things that I've got is a tremendous amount of perspective because I've lived through, the real estate crash when my mom and dad bought a house in 1989, and then it crashed and it didn't come back until 2003, right? So for 14 years, my mom and dad were upside down in their property. And then I lived through the technology bubble bursting, and I lost all my retirement then. And then 2008, thank goodness that you and I got into business together, because every single year for 17 years straight that we've been in business together, my income just gone, and so now we're here, and it's just been a tremendous blessing. And I was in advertising, was the job that I had right before I came here. I was a senior VP of operations at an ad agency, and my clients were Warner Brothers. We worked on the movie Troy, Batman Begins, Phantom of the Opera, Constantine, Polar Express, Gene Autry, who used to own the Angels baseball team. That was another one of my clients. Speedo, right? That was another one of my clients, aerospace engineering companies. And when I came here, I sat in on one of the presentations that you did. I sat on, one of the and I thought to myself, you know what? All of the numbers add up. Everything adds up that being in the financial industry at this moment in this time is perfect. And I'll tell you what I found is that, we often talk about diversifying our investments. What I'm finding is that people now are needing to diversify their income streams, is that they have to have, think about it, 40 years ago, you could get a job at the same company, you could get a pension, they could wind up, you work there for 40 years, they give you a $40 gold watch, and then they give you $40,000 a year in pension. That has gone away. In fact, most companies are not even matching 401k plans anymore. And so now you look at it and you go, well, what the heck are my options? Is that literally people stay in their current job about 2 to 3 years is the amount of turnover. And what are they expected to do? Gather up all their connections, and then they leave and take those connections and go to the next job. And then that company hires 2 new kids that have tons of student loans that are willing to just work for nothing. And so now you see people, like I have friends that are doctors that are in their 50s and they still have student loans, and you sit there and you go, wow, what kind of country, what kind of system is that, I always say that kids are starting life in hard mode, as they're automatically having $200,000 in student loans right out of the gate, and they haven't even made it a single dime in their chosen career, and they're starting at negative $200,000, and they haven't even gotten started in their career. So the fact is that I feel like the stuff that that you've taught me over the years has just been tremendous, and I'm very, very excited to share some of my notes. So, did you have any questions for me before I get into the PowerPoint?
No, not at all.
Okay, good. So let me go ahead and I will share this here with you guys. And one of the things that you have to be able to understand is that if you're going to go fishing, you got to make sure that there's fish in the pond that you're fishing in. You don't want to be sitting there casting your line and then realize there's no fish in the pond, right? And so what I'm going to talk about is building in a multi-trillion-dollar business opportunity. And so I am down here in Clearwater, Tampa, Florida. And I love it because there's no taxes, there's no state taxes, and real estate. We're literally walking distance to the beaches. The #1 beach in the entire country is about 10 minutes away from me, Clearwater Beach. If you want to follow me, it's M. Coleman CEO on Instagram. But let me get into this here real fast. Is that if you're going to go through any business, and this is one of the things that why my marketing and advertising background was very, very helpful, is I had seen this before I'd ever gone into business for myself, just because of market research. And so if you look at any business that's out there, there's several stages that a business goes through. Number one is that they're unknown. Let's look at Starbucks as an example. They're an unknown, like back in the 70s, early 80s, they were an unknown company, right? Like I said, my mom went in there, she didn't know who they were, okay? Then a few years later, they become a novelty act, right? And so I want you to remember the first time that you ever had a Frappuccino, right? I remember the year was 1994 or 95. I had gotten a Frappuccino and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing on earth. This is what I did. I went to my office and I said, guys, you got to get in my car. We're going to go to Starbucks. There's this thing you got to try. It's called a Frappuccino. It's the most amazing experience. It was a milkshake with some sprinkles on it, right? But I thought it was the greatest thing. That's the power of marketing. But then all of a sudden, everybody started talking about Frappuccinos. Then it goes to being socially acceptable. And so what happens when a company becomes socially acceptable? The language starts to change. Remember, you say, hey, let's go get a cup of coffee. Now it's what? Let's go grab a Starbucks. Hey, you want to go grab a Starbucks, right? And so then that's where when it starts to work its way into the language of society, you start going, hey, that's kind of interesting. That's something that, hey, Amazon, Tesla, these companies are working they're working their way into, into society, right? And then they become socially acceptable. Okay. I remember Netflix. That was one of the ones back in 2012. Then they stopped doing their delivery to homes. Everyone thought that they were crazy and they were still in that novelty act. Now look at Netflix today, right? And so then a company literally overnight, they will go through popular explosive growth. And if you think back to Starbucks, it looked like, man, they were just a couple of coffee shops, one in Glendale, one in Pasadena. The coffee was inconsistent. And then you blinked your eyes and they were on every street corner, right? And then a business goes into plateau. And then you've seen, news reports, oh, they're closing a few Starbucks and stuff like that and downsizing. Obviously that was, before the COVID-19. And that's going to be a real big mix up, for businesses. But I'm going to tell you this right now. This is one of the things that I want you to remember. A great friend, and I know he was a guest speaker on here, just a couple of shows ago, was the great Steve Siebold. And I remember Steve, I saw an interview with him And, this is back in 2008 when the real estate market crashed. And they said, oh my gosh, all of the, the world is falling apart and everything's going to hell in a handbasket, and Steve Siebold was like, man, this is the greatest time in the world to become a millionaire. And the interviewer, was sitting there just yelling at Steve Siebold going, man, there's all these problems and real estate's crashing and 401ks are down and investments are down and jobs are down and everything's down and there's all these problems. And Steve goes, man, there's a lot of problems, you say? And he goes, yeah, there's tons of problems. And Steve said, well, you know what? Last time I checked, people get paid a lot of money for solving problems. So it's correlated. If there's a lot of problems, that means there should be a lot of solutions, right? And so that's why, being in business with what John has taught me, being in the financial world and all that kind of stuff, I look at it and I go, man, we have so many solutions. Just every single person that I sit down with, from emergency funds to debt elimination to retirement planning and just being able to have someone to talk to. I've had so many of my clients who just talk to me and they're like, man, thank you so much. And so we have definitely seen an explosive growth. So I wanted to give you guys some perspective. I know that John did a tremendous job, absolutely incredible, of just going through just all of the pieces that he went through in the presentation here. But I wanted to show you really what we're sitting on. And this will steer you in the right direction. You look at any business that's out there, it doesn't take anything but a great idea, a great idea and then just a little bit of hard work. And you can literally create a business. And especially in today's day and age, when I was talking about, starting your own businesses, I was saying that people want to diversify their income. I have one lady, she works with us part-time. She works at answering phones at a reception, for an attorney. She works at one of the studios. She has a catering company, and she owns a little bit of real estate. And so this lady, she's in her late 50s. She has 5 different sources of income. But then I have another friend of mine. She's in her 20s. She works with us here. She's also a fashion designer. She works, as a receptionist, and she's got another part-time gig as an assistant. And she's got 4 different sources of income, and she's in her mid-20s, right? And so you start thinking about it. It's like, man, we have so much time on our hands right now to come out of this, and like John said, to not have multiple sources of income where you're just not looking. And so I remember I was talking to, someone that I met, his name's Ty Lopez, and I was chatting with Ty, and he was talking about how in this day and age, it's like with the internet, you could have an idea and go from idea to execution instantaneously, and so, it's just awesome. So I wanted you to think about this, what I'm about to show you, and I want you to think about the fact that if you don't, if you've got to pick, something where you're going to hang your hat, you got to know that business has long-term proposition, that there's going to be value, and so I want to show you this as we go through. Okay. So $100, that's an average American's daily wage. Okay. And by the way, a lot of people are hurting with, furloughs and getting laid off. What better time is there to take full control of your future than in this particular moment? But it's the startup cost for a business, getting started. When I got started, under John's tutelage, it cost me $100, to be able to start the classes and go through all that kind of stuff. It's the most counterfeited denomination in the world, but the $100 bill, until further notice, the American currency is the currency the world runs on. Okay. And so that keeps the world moving. Okay. This is the average annual income globally is about 10 grand, all countries combined. So I want you to think about this. If you make more than $10,000 right now, you're above average income earner in the world. Okay. And so you see a lot of people in America. This is one of those things that, it's the greatest land full of opportunity, and if you make $30, $40, $50,000, I mean, I've been to third world countries, and I'll show you that in a second, where that kind of money is what most average Americans make in a single year is a lifetime income for people in third world countries. Okay. And so, but in America, that's enough for a vacation, and it's enough for a small used car, okay? Now that's $1 million average income for 92 years of work, right? Global, that's the average income. But by the way, I want you to look at that. Not as big as you thought, right? John makes one of these, right? John makes many of these, stacks of these millions every single year, right? He is awesome. Okay, if you had one of these every 2.4 months, you'd be at a $5 million income in a year. Okay, so that's $1 million. And so, and I want you to think about it. You know, most people, they say, man, I want to be a millionaire. And I look at that and I go, wow, that just wouldn't last that long. You know, what's the average house in Southern California? Over $1 million. You know, you just go, geez, $1 million just isn't what it used to be, you know? And so you look at this, that's $100 million. Wow, that looks a little bit better. Okay, it fits nicely on an international standards organization standard palette, right? That creates a multiple six-figure residual income. You know, this is one of those things too. I have, you know, friends of mine in the financial industry, and, you know, they've got a few $100 million that they manage for people, and that pays them a high six-figure, seven-figure residual income. You know, and I look at that and I go, man, that's incredible. You know, and if you had one of those, that's going to give you roughly between about a $700,000 residual income if you were to manage that. You know, I have two major restaurant chains that I help their retirement for their employees, and you know, and it's awesome. You know, because I get paid a residual for all of that I help them to be able to consult them and teach them about how to save for their futures. And this, guys, this is someone, I went to school for music, for crying out loud. I don't have a background in finances, but I learned. And that's one of the cool things about this, is that you can learn, you know, and so it's out there for you. Now that's $1 billion, right? That's even more to go around. Okay, so you look at that. You need, you know, you see this, you'll need help. I like to joke, you'll need help robbing this bank. You know, you're not going to be able to steal this money in a couple of Mini Coopers. I don't know if you guys saw that movie where they jammed, like, you know, all this money into the Mini Coopers. I'm sorry, but you're going to have an army of Mini Coopers to be able to move this money, right? That's the average annual profit of Aegon. Transamerica, you know, one of the companies that we work with, pays out about 4 of these annually in death benefits. You know, one of our offices, you know, this last week we had a young man that it was just awful, but he was, you know, on his motorcycle and was T-boned by a truck. And, you know, and we have to go out there and pay his family $375,000. You know, he had life insurance with us. It's very, very important in this day and age in order to be able to do that. And I want you to think of all the families that, you know, people die. That's something that happens in nature, you know? And so when they go, what are you going to leave? Are you going to leave a bunch of debt? Are you going to leave a death benefit? Are you going to leave that and they go, man, I've been thinking about, you know, my family, you know? And so anyways, that's, I just wanted to tell you, that's $4 billion back in society that's going out there and helping families. And by the way, that stuff is tax-free, okay? So now look at this, $1 trillion. When we talk about $1 trillion of, you know, support, $1 trillion of, you know, debt, or $1 trillion in retirement, okay, that's roughly the size. Look at that. Those are double stacked pallets of $100 million, double stacked. One corner equals financial independence forever, a single corner. You guys want to know why we're running around going, man, we need to build more, you know, Oxianta offices and Transamerica offices and offices all over the country? It's because this is coming. Guys, I want to explain something, and John said it just so wonderfully. With these baby boomers, okay, and I don't want to create depression for anybody, but there is something called population turnover. And this is something that someone told me. It says every 100 years, all new people. Every 100 years, the entire population of the planet turns over, okay? And so what happens is that everything that those people had will be left to the new people that are getting here. And so if you're helping that transition, then some of this money will find its way into your pocket. And that's $1 million a day, every day for 2,700 years, okay? That's $1 trillion. That's bigger than a football field. So I want you to think about this, that There's $40 trillion to transfer wealth from the baby boomers to the next generation, which is Generation X, right? That's my generation, okay? There's 11 trillion in savings accounts and CDs. There's a place that you can go to called FRED. That's the Federal Reserve Economic Data app, okay? And on FRED, there's actually an app that will show you exactly the total amount that's in deposit savings accounts at banks. And there's $11 trillion in deposit savings accounts right now and CDs, okay? 11 football fields. So I'm going to tell you this right now, you know, going out and starting a furniture store or a little restaurant or something like that, I want you to think to yourself, what percentage of that, whatever business are you going to get of that football field, or of the 11 football fields and savings accounts, or the 40 football fields in retirement right now that's going to transfer over, okay? If your business is not designed to grab a majority share of those football fields, you may want to reassess your business, right? My background is marketing. All I did for years was study companies, profitability, distribution, and how to move products into the hands of consumers, right? Through proper messaging and communication. And I will tell you this right now, there's going out and having a lot of effort, and then there's having a lot of money coming to you. One of my friends that was in real estate, and she was making over $100,000 a year in 1979. And she said, I said, wow, how old are you? She goes, I was 19. I was like, oh, so you're born in 1960. She goes, yeah. I said, oh, you're a baby boomer. She goes, yeah. And I said, $100,000 in 79, that's like the equivalent of like 300 grand in today's dollars. And she goes, oh yeah, I was rich for a 19-year-old. And I said, were you some sort of like real estate wizard? And you know what she told me? She said, no, I was an order taker for the baby boomers, and I was at the right place at the right time. Baby boomers in the 80s would just come in and go, I want to buy that house. And then they just hand her money and sign paper. The paperwork for a house is like that much as opposed to like that much. And she says, I was at the right place at the right time, you know? And so now you look at it, and all these baby boomers, they're looking, right, to be able to get help with their money, you know? And so this here is the unfunded liabilities as of 2011. It's even more so now. The Statue of Liberty is so tiny and looks worried. You should be worried too, right? Because of this debt, bye-bye Social Security, bye-bye Medicare, bye-bye prescription drug plan, bye-bye military and civil pensions, all going away because of debt. Looks even worse there, right? So let me just finish up with these last couple of slides here, and because I know we want to take some Q&A. But you look at this over here. In order to have what I call a money tray, and this is from one of my great mentors, Sean Villalobos, right? And he basically said that if you're going to build a money tree, you got to make sure your opportunity is correct. So first is M, stands for multiple streams of income. Is the business that you're in, does it have multiple streams of income? Is it outstanding? Does it stand out from the rest of the competition in your field, right? How much money does it cost in order to be able to start that business? I remember I started a business in the 90s. Me and my friends, we said, hey, let's start our own software distribution company. We each threw down 10 grand, and then the CEO bought computers, and we were broke. Like, he spent all of the money on networking our computers, and then we had no money and we went out of business. Literally, we're in business for a week, right? So the business that you have, is there no money down? Okay. Is it employee resistant, right? Meaning, do you have to have a lot of employees, right? Because if you have a lot of employees, you have things like employee theft, benefits, lawsuits, hours, and, people not showing up. So is this employee resistant? Yes, right? Is there a yield? What's the yield? What's the return on investment? What's the trend in timing, which I just showed you that, okay? What is there residual income in there, okay? Is there residual? Absolutely. Is it essential to everybody every day, right? Well, I look at it and I go, why is Jeff Bezos where he is today? Because all of a sudden, literally within a few days, his company became essential to everyone every day. You know, everyone's jumping on Amazon, ordering their stuff, all that kind of stuff. And the last one is enthusiasm. Can you get excited about that business, right? And so if your business has all of these factors, you may have your hands, you may be sitting on a money tree, right? And what does this get you? Right? What kind of lifestyle does it get? This is us, you know, there's me, this is my assistant, great business partner is Adam there. And there's John and Arlene, and we're there with Bobby at the LA Kings game. Look at that. It's super fun back in the day when we could hang out with people, right? Then we go over to John's house, you know, hanging out with John and Arlene and, you know, Jamie and Sean. These are great friends and great mentors. I went over to John's house and, oh my gosh, I was just blown away, right? Literally, he said, oh, let's bring out the big guns, okay? So, and by the way, that's a tiny bit of John's arsenal when you walk into his house. And dude, you do not want to be sneaking around in that dude's backyard by any stretch of the imagination, right? Anyways, and then there's us. This is in Australia and Fiji, you know, and so we had a chance to be able to go to Australia and Fiji and hang out, you know, with our great friend, Jeff Levitan, Cash Raston, some of these great champions in business. There's our wives, you know, just absolutely incredible to be able to have a business where we can bring our families and our wives, you know, to be able to go there and enjoy. And so weeks in Australia and in Fiji, it was awesome, right? Now, you have to know how to motivate the motivator, right? And so John was like, all right, Coleman, you got to get to work, my friend. You got to get back to it, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh, John, no, right? And so I'm like, okay, I got to roll up my sleeves, brother, and I got to go back to work, right? But then what's it all for? Why are we working so hard? You know, I had a chance. We raised over $115,000, and John and I sit on the board of directors of the All for One Foundation. We created a child prosperity center in Kampala, Uganda. In 2003 was when we originally built it. I went back there in 2018, and you know, and we wound up rebuilding and expanding our orphanage from holding 50 children, right, to now it holds 200 kids. This is us at the groundbreaking and the framing of the new staff dormitory and kitchen. Then there's new dormitories for the kids. And then we have new classrooms that we're building, a new garden that we're building for these kids. And literally there's a church that is trying to send over 150 new kids because they don't have enough beds at the church. So we're taking that over, right? Here's the kids. Don't they look amazing? You know, and I want you to understand the reward. You see the two young gentlemen there? Actually, three of them. Their brother is kind of blurry, and they're not brothers by blood. They're brothers by circumstance. You know, that's Shadrach, Patrick, and Danson, right? And those three, the three older boys in the background there, you know, when we got there, they ran up to us and they were crying, and we were like, "Hello, how are you?" And they were like, "We love you. We thank you." And we're like, "We just got here, guys. What's happening?" And they go, "No. We were the original orphans in 2003. They found us living in trash piles. If you, meaning me and John and Jeff and Jamie, you know, if you guys had not started the orphanage, we would have died. It's because of you that we're alive." Guys, this is why you have to be in business with a goal that's more than yourself. This is something John taught me early on in my career. He said, if you don't have something that's bigger than yourself, you'll top out at about $250,000 a year. If you have something that's bigger than yourself, meaning giving back to the community, you have great motivators, meaning not just money, but making the world a better place, then you will have a chance to accumulate great wealth because you will get paid for being of service to mankind. And I took those words that John taught me very, very seriously, right? And so now there's us. We're, you know, just getting ready for the groundbreaking there. You know, some of the great leaders that I have a chance to be able to work with. And so again, take advantage of that timing. Bring hope to families. Bring hope to others. You know, abundance. You have to have, in whatever business you're in, you have to have an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset. Talent is unnecessary when you find the right business. You can become an order taker like I told you that my friend became, right? And then you have to rally people to big events like what John's going to be doing on Thursday. You got to get as many people there. The education that he's going to be giving right? You may have a couple of know-it-all knucklehead friends that think that they know what they're talking about, but I'm going to tell you this right now, they're going to wind up learning some stuff, and you're going to have some engaging conversations with those guys. And then you got to get good at asking one question, right? Visa or MasterCard, let's get you started, right? Let's get out there and start moving commerce into the hands of society. So with that, guys, being said, I just wanted to, thank you, John, for having me on here. I hope that I brought a little bit of value and perspective, and a little bit of experience. But, again, Heather and I are tremendously grateful for our relationship with you and John, with you and Arlene. And, I'm excited to spend a little bit of time with you.
Thanks, Mike. I mean, that was great to see, the amount of money that we're talking about in a different perspective, right? When you see the graphs, you see them side by side, you really start to vision that, and how much $1 trillion is, let alone, 30 trillion, or $40 trillion in the industry that we're in now. And, how much money, I just sit there and think about it. If you just got 1% of 30 trillion, if you could just have some sort of market penetration and just capture 1%, where would you be, right?
Oh, huge.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be a billionaire. If you just got 1% of this industry, you'd be a billionaire. Even if you got 0.5%, you'd still be a billionaire. If you got 0.5% of 0.5%, you'd still be a billionaire. You guys, I mean, it's just, that is just, I don't even know, just obscene, ridiculous amount of money. And I just hope you guys all saw what Michael was illustrating there for you guys. So here's what I want to do. We want to do some Q&A. And if you've got any questions, you guys, down below on your screen, you'll see something that says Q&A. And what you're going to do is you're just going to type in a question that you guys want to have Michael answer for you. So there's something that you want to share that you think, if you want to talk about the money tree formula, what is it? Go ahead and ask that question now. We'll give you a couple seconds. There's some people that are texting right now, and they're saying, thank you, Mike. That was awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Some people are texting me right now on my cell phone. So is there any specifics, you guys, that you guys have to ask Michael right now? Q&A time. Opportunity. Okay. So we do have one.
What's Fred? He said, what's Fred again? And Fred is the Federal Reserve Economic Data website, Federal Reserve Economic Data. So it's banking stats from the Fed. Very boring. All
right. Can Michael share the slide that he skipped before, the money tree slide?
Sure. Let me get back to it.
Okay. While you're doing that, the other one is, Michael, what is your desire? What is your burning desire?
My burning desire, it's funny because one of the things that you taught me early on, and let me just share this real fast and I'll answer that question. But that's the slide. It was just a different perspective of what $122 trillion deficit looks like. So bigger than the World Trade Center, bigger than the Empire State Building, bigger than the Statue of Liberty, right? That's all these stacks over here is 122 trillion all the way up to the sky. So that was the slide. So there you go. But let me tell you, when we got started, you told me that, you sat down with all of us at a Denny's and you said, if you don't have something bigger than yourself, you're going to wind up being in a position where, the money, like, what are you going to do after the money? Like once you make millions of dollars, what are you going to do? Okay. And then what's after that? Okay. And then what's after that? Okay. What's after that? And, you had asked a question, like, how much is enough? How much is enough? And so I remember that it was a bunch of young people. And I was there and everyone was sitting there going, man, how much is enough? One guy was like, man, I couldn't live on less than $10 million. Like I would just feel so unfulfilled. And I'm sitting there going, wait, don't you work at like Target, bro? Like you can't live without 10 million, but you're like working down at the Target, And then someone else is like, 10 million a year? I couldn't live without 10 million a month. And I was like, aren't you a receptionist at like a plumbing company? Right. And then another girl says, 10 million a month? I could spend that on shoes. And I was like, oh my gosh, these people are idiots, right? They're like, we got a lot of work to do. And so we're sitting there and you're sitting there eating. Let me give you a little trivia. You want to know what John Shin likes to eat at Denny's? The Super Bird, right? And so he's sitting there chomping on his Super Bird, and someone turns to John and says, hey, John, when is it going to be enough for you? And John already was making millions by the time they asked the question. And he goes, 250,000. And then just chomp, right? And they're like, 250,000? You make way more than that. And he goes, that's right, because I have bigger whys than just the money, you know? And so that made me stop and think for a second, like, what do I want to be able to do? And so what is my burning desire? It's to help others. You know, it's like all I do every day is to get up and give the message of financial literacy to the people that I get a chance to be able to be across from. You know, it sounds like, I don't know, I don't really feel, there's not much more stuff. I'm sitting in my freaking custom music studio in my super big house down in Florida, you know, like I'm here with my wife. I've got everything that we need, you know what I mean? And so for me, I just look at it and I look at when I exit this plane of existence, did I really do everything that I could? You know, I just, there's if you guys follow Jamie, you know, just did what's it called, a interview on YouTube. And, you know, she asked, she says, you know, what do you, something similar to that question. And I said, you know, a lot of people say, you know, that you should live every day like it was going to be your last day on earth. And I don't agree with that, you know, because a lot of times that people, if they live every day, if it was the last day on earth, I mean, they do a bunch of bad things and then fizzle out at the end of the day. And that would be that. The better gauge of it is that you need to live every day like you're going to be here forever. That you're going to have to inherit the responsibility of your actions every day. So what you do today will be important tomorrow. And then what you do tomorrow will be important the next day. And so for me, my motivation is just making sure that I'm building a better tomorrow, because I'm going to inherit it one way or another. I'm going to inherit what I leave, you know, whether you believe, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, is that, you know, you're going to inherit it in one way or another in the next plane of existence. So that's my motivation.
Awesome. All right. Let's see here. This is Michael, throughout your journey here in the financial industry, what was your turning point? What is your turning point?
You know, turning point. I'll tell you this right now, actually, it's really appropriate. I was working at my job in advertising, and I remember that, you know, John was doing a coaching session, and, you know, and one of the homework assignments that he said was, you know, to read Think and Grow Rich, and that I had to do my business plan. And so I remember staying up from work on 7 o'clock, and everybody gone home. I was in charge. I was basically the second command of the whole advertising agency. And everybody had gone home, and it was 7 o'clock on a Friday night. And I said, I'm gonna write the blueprint for my ideal life. From now until the end of my life, I'm gonna write the ideal blueprint of what my life is gonna look like. And so I sat there and I started writing it at 7 p.m. on Friday. And I looked up, and it was 12 hours later. The sun was coming up in Burbank. And I was like, oh my gosh, that, like, what just happened? And I just took every facet of my life, you know, from my, you know, personal well-being and health, to family goals, to team goals, to my contributions to mankind, you know, live, like, do I want to have animals and plants, and how am I going to contribute to that? You know, what about the stuff that I want to have, my spiritual goals, my relationship with God? And I started to put all of these things down onto, you know, onto paper. And when I looked up 12 hours later, it was like no time had passed. And I said, oh crap, I got a meeting with John in 2 hours. So I ran home and I took a shower. I met with John for another, you know, mentoring session. Then I went back to work, and I continued about 2 o'clock that afternoon all the way until about noon on Sunday. So literally I spent over 2 days, like almost 50 straight hours, clacking away, creating the blueprint of my ideal life. If you want to know what my turning point was, it was that. And when I finally turned that sort of homework assignment into John, you know, and I said, here you go, here's my business plan. It was really my life blueprint more than just a business plan. And he looked at it and he says, wow, this is a wonderful working document. And if you do even, you know, half of the things that you want to do, you're going to change the world, my friend. And I felt, you know, number one, having John's belief in me, that was tremendously important, but having a crystal clear vision of what I wanted to accomplish, complete turning point for me. So.
Awesome. All right. Two more questions here real quick. One is, what would you do, Mike, to help knock down the national debt?
What I would do, okay, I actually have thought about this. That's a really interesting, that no one's ever asked me that question, but it is something that I think about. You know what I would do is I would actually make it so that, I haven't fully thought this out. This is only the very beginnings of it, but I would make it so that, you know, the way that the structure is set up right now is that we've got the Federal Reserve, and the US government borrows tons of money from the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve charges interest in that. Now we're in the process of paying interest on debt that we're never going to get out of. And so every day we're piling in billions more on interest on top of debt that as a country we owe. So what's the problem with that? Is that the money, there's no way to manage the spread, right? And so what happens is that you have the interest that we're paying. So let's look at it in a microcosmic scale. You have the, you know, let's say you have a household and you have a ton of debt, okay? So here's your debt, okay? And you have no savings. So your savings is down here, you know, and you want to get out of debt. Well, what happens is that you keep trying to pay the debt down and keep trying to pay it down, and then you never build a surplus, okay? Well, the US is in this problem where they're not building any surplus, right? They're just stacking up that debt like it's just, like it's never going to end. So for me, you know, how do the banks do it? They loan us money at 20%, and then we save money with them at 1%. So we put our money in, 10,000 in a savings account, we get 1%. They loan that 10,000 right back to us, and they loan it back to us at a higher percentage, you know, 20%. So think about that. We're negative 19% on our own money every single day. The way that I would do it, and I mean, I'm not an economist, and I'm certainly not, you know, someone that has any credentials to be able to think, you know, that this solution would be workable, but it's to manage the spread. Have the money that we have being able to be invested in commerce and actual infrastructure to where it can be profitable and actually allow that money to participate in the growth of business and the economy of the US, right? And why not in other countries to own, you know, almost to own the infrastructures of other countries? China's doing it to us. Why can't we do it to other countries and then wind up having a profit on that? Then what happens is that the money that we have would wind up creating a positive interest rate spread where we're making more money on the money that we're borrowing versus the debt that we have that we're having to pay. If we can get that to the plus, then we can actually figure out a way. If we're compounding more interest on money that we're borrowing than the interest that we're paying to borrow that money, that spread right there will eventually allow us, it may be 50 years, it may be 100 years, but it would eventually allow us to become a debt-free nation. And again, I haven't put a lot of thought power into this. You're asking me a question that was just a random thought from, you know, a while ago. So anyway, John, I don't know if that was probably super heady for this group.
No, it's great. I got my opinions on that. That's for sure.
Totally.
All right. The last question I have, and I got a bunch of people here. You wanted me to talk about some real estate stuff. That, you guys, let's save till Thursday just because of the sake of time. I'm really going to get into it because I just feel like I'm really concerned about all these young people thinking, hey, let me just tell you this. Most of the people that I know, the people in the wealth, you know, high net worth and all that, we're getting out of the real estate industry. Does that make sense, right? We're getting out. and all the young people are now getting in. So I caution you, I really, really do. And I appreciate some of you guys texting me right now and said, John, you're spot on. That, you know, people need to know more about real estate and all that kind of stuff, because you're just blindly going in there because you don't know any better. If you knew what I know today, you would not be saying that you would want to go into real estate. But anyway, let's save that for Thursday. In the meantime, last one here is, how did you market yourself having a marketing background? How did you market yourself?
You know, I think that part of it is, it doesn't really matter what your background is if you have decent communication skills and you're genuinely interested in other people. Because what I would do is that, you know, in whatever industry that you're in, whether you're in food services to finances to banking, mortgage, customer service is of ultimate importance. So if you sit with somebody and they go, wow, you're really listening to me, you're really understanding the questions that I'm asking, then what happens is that you automatically become the authority because they feel like you're really understanding them. Now, the other part of it is that you need to increase your level of competency, because if you do an incompetent job of servicing that person, well, then your reputation is out the door, you know? And so for me, every day, I got really good at saying, hey, I don't know the answer to that question, but when we get back together, I'll have an answer for you. And you know what? People respect that kind of honesty, that we can't know everything at every second of the day. But I always came back and I had good answers for the customers that I had. And so for me, my branding, I guess that you could say, is I would tell people, look, I'm a business owner, you know? And a lot of times people would ask me, hey, what do you do? Like, well, if I were to ask you, what do you do? What's your answer to that question? This is a good one. I call it one hand, other hand. I said, well, how do I explain it? On one hand, I help families and businesses with their insurance and investments to build a solid financial foundation. But on the other hand, I own my own agency where I recruit, train, and apprentice new agents to do what I do. I guess you could say I'm their broker, right? So on one hand, help families and businesses with their insurance and investments to be able to build a solid financial foundation for their future. And on the other hand, I own my own agency, you know, where I recruit, train, and apprentice new agents to do what I do. I guess you could say I'm their broker. And people go, wow. So automatically, what am I doing? My altitude is very high because I'm a business owner. And I think that other business owners respect other business owners. So it doesn't really matter what your background is, you know, it all has to do with your own self-confidence and how you project yourself, you know? So anyway.
Okay. You guys, that's about it. That's all the time we've got. I just wanted to, some people are texting me right now and they're asking, John, what's your input on the national debt? We want to get your perspective. So let me just show you guys something here real fast, okay? Can we share this or no?
Yeah, we can see it.
Can you guys see this here right now? Okay.
Yep.
So now this is a little dated. It's the fastest thing I can find online just so you guys can see it. But here's where we're headed. This is the 2015 fiscal year spending, okay? And you can get more up to date. You probably look at 17, 18, 19. Look at what we're spending right now on Social Security, just so you guys can see that. That's Social Security. The Social Security in itself is almost $1 trillion, everyone, okay? And, you know, it's going to be very unfortunate that many of you guys are probably not going to be a beneficiary of the Social Security Trust Fund, okay? The way it was designed and the way it works right now, it doesn't work anymore. In fact, if you go to Social Security, ssa.gov, and I'm not making this up, everyone. I'm not making this up. You think I'm making this up. I'm not trying to be negative, okay? But the Social Security Administration themselves have posted that the Social Security Trust Fund will be exhausted by the year 2026. Okay, so this is a very imminent problem. This is not something we can go, we'll just push it to a later day. We'll just ignore it. Okay, this is a you're not told by your doctor that you've got cancer and then you just ignore it. Does that make sense? You just don't do that. Very catastrophic things will happen. You don't go see a cardiologist who does an ultrasound and says, or does some sort of an angiogram on your heart and says, hey, your main aorta, they call that the widowmaker, that right now, your main artery has got 99% blockage. You don't just go, it'll work itself out, right? I'm going to take a little more vitamins and it'll, I'm going to take CBD and it's going to open up suddenly, okay? No, like you cannot ignore that. You cannot ignore the fact, guys, that our country right now is spending more than we make. Now, I don't know about you, but you just got to put that in perspective. Let's take a look at your household expenses right now. Take your monthly expenses right now. Let's just say it was 10 grand, but you're only bringing home 4,000. How long can you sustain that before your family just says, I think we're going to have to file bankruptcy pretty soon? I just want to ask you guys that question. How long can you sustain that? And that's kind of where our nation's at right now. Folks, let me just tell you something. Big changes are about to come. And you have to be ready for this. You have to be able to embrace these changes. Social Security is at $1 trillion. Medicare and Medicaid is another trillion. We are looking at almost $2 trillion in just government what? Helping out. And so you think it's bad now. We're going to have more and more impoverished people in the next 5 to 10 years, unless something changes drastically. And let me just tell you something. The politicians have been working on this since 1776. As we celebrated our national the birth of our country just a few days ago, the way we've been operating, how has it worked out for our country? It hasn't. And something's got to change. And I want you to know, change is coming here. I don't see us spending anything less than we already are on our defense. Let's just face it. And look, I know some of you guys dialed in because you were hoping for a kumbaya. Okay, everything is going to be fine. But I want to give you the reality. Some of you guys are like, oh my God, this is a scary phone call. Well, good, because I'm here to deliver a reality check to everybody, right? That you can't just sit here and ignore where you're at. You better start saving money. You better start preparing for the future, because it's about to happen. And I hope that you've got lots of money, you got lots of cash, and you are debt free, and then you've got other things that you're prepared for, right? And as Michael Coleman showed you 2 of my pieces, boy, I want to make sure I protect. And that was just the 2 of a lot. Okay. Yeah, this is reality, folks. This is why we're trying to educate people about money, so that people could take some fiscal responsibility now. You know, the idea that you think that your mayor, that your governor, that these elected officials, oh my God, if you only knew all the things that these politicians have done for themselves, right? Providing free tuition for their children to become a politician. They get guaranteed pensions, retirement accounts, matching programs. Are you kidding me? For those of us in the private sector, man, this is serious stuff. And people just want to think, oh, the government's going to bail it. No, the government is going to bail themselves out. That's it. They're going to take care of their own. You got to go work in the public sector. But if you're in the private sector, folks, I'm telling you right now, you better start tuning in every Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays so we can get you prepared, because all hell's about to break loose. Okay? And I hope that you're prepared. It's not whether it's going to break loose. All hell's going to. The hell's going to break loose. It's just a matter of time. Okay? Now you guys are like, oh my God, John's so negative. He's scaring me. Good. Because I'm trying to give you a wake-up call, man. All right? So listen, Mike thank you for being here today. We appreciated your time, your generosity, your wisdom. We wish you all the best out there in your new home in Clearwater, Florida. And for those of you guys that are joining us here today, make sure that you tune in this coming Thursday. We've got a lot to share with you. And then we'll see you again this coming Saturday. So any final words, Michael Coleman, that you want to share with everyone?
I'll tell you that, whenever there's humongous downturns like this, there's always a silver lining. And it's, like it says in Think or Grow Rich, we have to be willing to look for it. And so you got to get out there and find your silver lining, guys. And it has a lot to do with your association. So you just being here is a tremendous first step forward. So we're here for you. We appreciate you.
Well said. All right, guys, our time is up. I went over again, 15, 16 minutes here, but was it worth it, man? Hell yeah, it was worth it. So you guys, hey, Mike, thanks. I know it's super late. It's almost like, 11:15 in Florida. I know it's super late. Say hello to Heather. Send her our love. We're thinking about you guys. And for the rest of you guys, thank you for joining us here tonight at Tuesday Talks. We look forward to seeing you this coming Tuesday. God bless everyone. Be safe. Continue to social distance and take responsibility. God bless everyone. Take care.